Hey there, and welcome to another after show episode of Creatives Chat, where I pick up with my conversation with Dorian Jones, a truly selfless individual who is passionate about seeing others become their best selves.
And I'll be tagging along for the ride. So join us as we chat about who knows what and why it matters.
Yeah.
Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
wearehistorically.com, Conscious Brand Apparel, and
Level up your life and raise your vibration with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks. Get your vibrational sound tools for your personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
So let's begin our show.
You know, these types of just conversations is just everyone is always riding like us. We're all going in our own direction, but we're all riding the same waves. You know, it takes that path of like really looking within to awaken to just how magical and dope life is. But then it's the common thread. It doesn't matter where people are coming from it, whether it's like a spiritual or a practical or a material or like whatever it is, the angle that they're looking within. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I find is people that have really taken the reins in their own life are ones who have always questioned themselves thoroughly. Mm-hmm. And not like beat themselves up. Obviously, everyone can ruminate. We can all dwell and be depressive, but like they're the ones that have really been like, okay, well, what am I going to do about it though?
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I like to give people a lot of information when I do interviews. I don't like to hold anything back. I give people the truth. I give them at least my truth and what I believe. And I just be real with people. I'm not going to sit here and, no, I'm not going to be fluffy about them. Hey, I'm going to just keep it 100 with you. I'm going to keep it straightforward to the point and just give you the information that I know that's going to help out. Yeah. The words that I know that are going to impact people, no matter what walk of life they come from, because we all battle with the same things.
100%. And I'm very curious about that in terms of your perspective on it. Because I know personally, I feel like once I stopped trying to say a specific point to people, in terms of just like, oh, well, maybe I could say like this line, maybe they'll appreciate this. And I just started to be very blunt and real with just like, well, that's just not how life is. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, you can just kind of you can cry about it all you want, but that's just not how life is. Like that type of fierce love and directness is something that I've found that more people appreciate than the fluff, than any type of just like, oh, well, let me tiptoe around it. It's just like, nah, right. Rip that Band-Aid off.
Right. Start that healing process. Yeah.
Well, that right there, though, is being able to look at your trauma and not run away from it. Yeah, we're historically healers, though. But it's that sense of like even getting to a point of healing yourself and recognizing that, you know, you have to believe in yourself to get things done. Like, how does one go from the realm of not believing in themselves to believing in themselves?
That comes with action. Once you start to see that progress, once you start to feel like, okay, you know what, I do see myself achieving small things. I do see myself having things that I've always visualized. I start to see them come into my fruition. And then you like that, it just builds something. I don't know if it's one of those 4 happy chemicals. I don't know if it's the dopamine. It's not the dopamine. It's one of those 4 that it activates because you start to see the progress. Yeah. Think about you being just you going through life. When you have so many bad things happen to you, you're going to constantly think this is all I'm destined for. But once you see great things start to happen, you start to get on the upbeat. You're like, you know what? Oh, this is really good. Like, I feel good today because you had something great happen to you. So if you continue to take action for yourself and have all of these small goals and have all of these small objectives reached, then that's going to build that confidence, going to build that belief.
Facts. And the thing is right there is I love that is like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like if it needs to be a small list and small accomplishments, start there, do something. Yeah. And I really like that because I feel a lot of people don't really have an answer for that. Like, how do you believe yourself? How do you trust yourself or love yourself if you don't know? But it's just like action.
Yeah.
That's like one of those ones that silences the mind because you're like, shit, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Just do it. Because so many times we don't take action because we sit there questioning, sitting there asking questions. Why? How? Who's going to help me?
I like to jump in with the how. because most of the time, I think that's where we get stuck is in the how. And when that happens, we're looking outside ourselves for answers. Well, how did they do it? How did they do it? How did this person do it? And then they think, oh, I'm doing it wrong. So then we make ourselves wrong for doing something that, one, we have maybe something we haven't done before. And so this is what I want to throw out there, that there is no how. The how happens in the moment. And how it happened for you may not happen for me because the circumstances are completely different. And so I have to figure out how on my own. I can take your suggestions. I can take Peter's suggestions. I can take whoever's suggestions. But and I love the way you put it in our first part, in part one, you got to make your own recipe. And so how it works for me, and the only way you're going to know if it works, you said it, take action. And then you learn by your mistakes. You go, okay, that didn't work. But you don't beat yourself up for doing it. You congratulate yourself for taking action. Even if it doesn't work, at least you did something to find out, okay, life is a process of elimination. You have to, sometimes you have to figure out what doesn't work in order to figure out what does.
And
definitely the latter.
And I think a lot of people get stuck in that, don't reinvent the wheel. But I tell people, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're still taking the same wheel. You're just putting your own threads into it. You're not really reinventing. You got to do it because you'll look at these people who did great things or that you see publicly. You look at, let's say you look at Grant Cardone. You see, oh man, he built this and this is how he did it. I need to do it the exact way. Nah, you don't have to do it the exact way. You could take things from him, take those same principles, those same beliefs, those same actions, and add your own to it. Just do it your own way. Put your own twist onto it. Make the Peter way. Just do it for yourself. Do it. That's what. But I think that's where the herd mentality comes in, and separate yourself from the pack, because that is what separates you from the pack, because you're doing it on your own. I mean, the thing is,
self-guided.
Most of the time, I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I want my hand held, and I would really love for life to be a smooth process and a smooth transition. But it's up and it's down, and there's bumps and there's surprises and curveballs, and how we manage it is in the moment. How we respond, how we react, it's all conditioned. And if we, so if we're not responding, because that really is what the definition of responsibility is just the ability to respond. And a lot of us don't have that ability. We react, we don't respond.
Yes. And that aspect of getting out of the reaction is the most important and pivotal, because most people's reactionary states is the fear-based stuff. It's the, I can't do this. It's the, it's the no's. It's the infinite list of imaginary scenarios that'll never come to be, that we tell ourselves why we can't do something. But that hits the nail on the head, Rusty. I really like that. The how happens in the now is how I phrased it. And that's the importance of really getting out there and acting when you don't give yourself the time to ruminate. You don't give yourself the time to go into that cyclic cycle of just negative, depressive thought. It really is that law of attraction comes back into play. So are you going to be that downward, inward spiral, or are you going to be radiating and expanding out? That's the choice, because life can't respond to you if you're taking things in.
Exactly. You choose the energy that you allow in. You choose what you put up.
And through that dance, that's the coolest stuff, is because that's when we have those really dope experiences of just validating our own practice in the moment. We're like, oh, it worked. Yeah. There we go, and then you keep going and going. So I really like that. And it comes back to the small stuff. One of the things that I always want to highlight for people, and it was this famous drill sergeant. I don't really even remember the guy's name. Sorry. But the sense of, you make your bed in the morning, not because it's cleanly or things like that. He's like, I make my bed in the morning because it's the first task that I do. And it's the first thing I check off my list of already having a successful day already. And it doesn't matter if I don't check anything else off that box, that I know that after a long day, I come home and that bed is made. And he's like, and there is just something different about sleeping in a bed that's made than one that's all messy. And I was just like, I vibe with that. I like that.
Right.
You know, it's the most subtle thing of practices. But I mean, as a kid, like I ignored that all the time. It was like I had to do it by force. But like when we're taught certain things in this way of just like a loving fashion, I find that's what really transforms the practices. Where it's like when we see it as that expression of love, where it's like, no, I'm giving myself the opportunity to get graced by life. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, this happened to me. Ooh.
Right. Nah, definitely.
Interesting. So in the sense of, because this is one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and I had to save it from the green room talk. Raising a child in today's current environment and passing the torch of these types of introspections, how has that journey been as a father in this path of just like waking up and being awakened and living in the world where it's still kind of shitty?
It's the thing of, for me, I learned not to try and put my beliefs onto her, but just learning how to guide, how to listen, and just understand, because we try, and as parents, I wouldn't say we try, but as parents, sometimes we try and force our beliefs on a child, not understand that they're growing people, that they have their own thoughts, they have their own emotions, they go through it all. So you have to be there for them, listen to them, and listen to their needs and their wants. And then just guide them into the right direction. Like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but this is why this is wrong. Okay, I understand what you're saying. This is why this is right. Okay, I'm going to help you with this. So you help them develop that character. So it's all about character building. That's what I found for me, is it's all about character building and understanding and having that open line of communication and trust.
Well, for those listening, you know, I just got to give Dorian a shout out. Amazing relationship with his daughter. Like from what just Rusty and I could pick up on, and being able to have that for a teen in today's current climate, and to have clients that I know that have children in that age group, and to see the disconnect that they experience.
Yeah.
That's how you know that someone is actually building a character based in a foundation of love and truth versus false, because it's that same concept of like, no, you just don't give them a phone and they run off all the time. They're just not allowed to do whatever they want. Like it's that sense of a two-way street relationship. And I think that's a really important thing for, you know, a lot of teachers and educators know, you know, you have a parenting quadrant, you know, of all the different styles. You got the Judge Dredd, you got the neglectful, the permissive helicopter, then you have that authoritative. And that Goldilocks zone is what everyone really should be aspiring for. And I mean, it definitely is exactly what you're talking about, like the two-way street of communication. Like I'm going to guide them. They have questions. I'm going to have to give them answers, you know, just can't just buy rules or like, that's it. And that is what makes well-rounded people that can navigate the chaos of life. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of those things, is like when you're consciously going about parenting as a sense of guiding and just like building the character of the little human you have, like that's a huge societal shift that I feel like a lot of parents are ready to take, but they just may not know how.
Yeah. And one thing I want to give a tip to any parents out there, connect with your kids, meet them where they are. Don't try and bring them, just allow them to be a child. If they're into certain things, like I don't really let her get on TikTok too much, but if she do, like if it's little dances, even though I cannot dance for nothing, like my life depended on it, I still like try the little dances with her, and she'll just laugh at me. Like I'm real goofy with her. I'm like, I act like I'm one of her friends. Like I'm a kid. Like we'll sit there and I'm like, it's like maybe 9 o'clock. I'm like, look, you want to make some ice cream sandwiches? Like we'll bake the cookies and then just eat ice cream with it and just eat popcorn and nachos. And just, like, I'm just like a kid with, I'm like, all right, cool, let's go. Or if we go to stores and stuff, we'll race down the aisles and stuff. Just have fun with the kids. Don't just be so much of an adult that you forget to connect with your child. And that's what you need to do. Yeah.
Because I understand that. I'm the funkle. So I'm like, you know, it's like, oh, the Peter's, yeah, the fun uncle, yeah, let's go. It's just like, but that's really all it takes, yo, is just to really establish those bonds that like, those are memories she's always going to remember. You know, those are going to be things that like changes the way, like, if, you know, if a kid decides to have kids, who knows, like that's going to change the way they pass on their torch of wisdom to their, like to the next generations. And like, that's the stuff that's beautiful to me, because we talked about education in the first segment. And, you know, some of the things that may cause a lot of these issues that kids have. And I actually think it comes back to the burnout statement, like you were saying, at home. It starts when parents forget how to play and be their inner child. That's like the first step, because you have kids then now see someone that's a grown up that they see as like a god, because they're like, oh, this person who cares for me and does all these things. They think that's what it means to grow up.
Right.
They think that's what you have to do to grow up, that you have to lose that innocence. You have to lose that playfulness. So like you're in like one of the greatest social experiments of all time, saying, you know, like being playful with your kid, because it's like, yo, like who knows how that's going to change the way she sees growing up and just being in a, like growing up into an adult. It's just like, oh, I'm still playful. I'm still silly. Because I know so many of my friends that got very like confined and closed off the older we got. And then now I barely even recognize them. But it's that same sense, like they grew up with these role models. Just like you have to be a super stoic, rigid, stern, kind of douchey parent.
Yeah, and I'm goofy. I like to play around a lot. Like I joke around a lot. Like I pick on her. Sometimes I push her around. Like we walking somewhere, I push her into the wall. Like not hard, but just playfully, just having fun, and then let her know, like, yeah, you can play with me. She know to push me back, and it gets on my nerves sometimes because she play a little bit too much. Like one time we went to a restaurant. And then I went to the bathroom. She poured a bunch of salt into my water. I'm like, dude, so,
that's pretty awesome.
You know, so I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm not yelling at her. Why'd you do it? I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get you back. So
exactly. It's like, and you won't even see it coming.
Exactly. So, you know,
that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm going to take it one step further because really, you have a daughter, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is something I've picked up on my journey, is that as children, I learned how to relate with women through my relationship with my mother, right? And then little girls learn how to relate with men through their father. And so the experience she's having with you is actually helping her. Oh, yeah, I see Peter.
I was just like, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right? So her experience with you gives her a better idea of the quality of man she can attract.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like if you're being all stern and time to be serious, then that might be the man she ends up attracted to. You're being goofy, you're being fun, because that's how we learn our in our relationships. So honestly, like when I was going through my dating cycle as a kid, I hate to say it, I was dating my mom, but it's kind of the truth,
right?
Because my mom was great. I wanted a woman as great as my mom. My mom played with me. My mom did all sorts of stuff with me. We went skydiving together, whitewater rafting together, hot air ballooning together, spelunking, rappelling.
That's great,
right? And so that's the type of woman I want in my life, right? And that's where I'm going with this, is that you're educating your daughter on, what it's like to have a relationship with a man.
Yeah. That's very true. I never looked at it like that. But yeah, now that you say it, that's very true.
It all starts so young. I think that's the stuff that always blows my mind the more I dive deep into like the self-awareness aspect of things, where I'm just like, when does it really start? Pull that loose thread. Like, when did this begin? When did this conditioning really begin? When was I really like repulsed by certain behaviors? When was I really drawn towards certain behaviors? And it's like, yo, like everything we get, I feel like starts before we're 10, like maybe 7. Like, what it's just like, all right, have fun, spin. It's almost like pin the tail on the donkey, get blindfolded. It's like, all right, we're spinning you around, now go. And then most people don't take off their blindfold until like a midlife crisis. But like, being able to actually set a child up in a direction that serves more truth to the heart, that's the work right there. Like that can transform so many people, just because again, it changes how parents see how to raise kids. And I think that's one of the things, especially if like, I don't know, that's always been one of the biggest kind of like gripes I've had with Black culture, is how we raise our kids, is how we parent, that authoritarian, like Judge Dredd style, where it was like, at least that's not, I was the old school style where it was just like, like do what, because we said to do it.
Why? Like, don't question me. You're gonna get a whooping. Like,
excuse me? Like,
getting.
No, I didn't say anything.
Right. So I'm the same way. Trust me. My parenting from my mom was it was I don't know. It was complicated, but
they did their best.
not in a bad way. She's a good mom, but I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. I won't go into detail.
But that's right there. Is it even that though changes the way we communicate. I know first, like personally, like that's one of the things that I had to learn to really like scrub out of my conditioning was just like the way I reacted to people, the way I talked with people, how I dealt with frustration. And I think one of the things too is seeing so much conflict as a child, but never seeing any of the resolution. You know, never seeing or hearing someone talk something through.
Right.
I had to teach myself how to do that, you
Right.
know, and just being able to have a relation and a connection with your kid who is seen as like, you still understand that I'm a parent, but we can be playful in our relationship with one another. Like that's the real work right there. That's how we change society in a whole, because I feel the parents that would always get the praise in my own experience growing up were all the ones that were super lax, and the kids were just little hellions in truth. You know, the ones where I'm like being more respectful to the parent than the child is. Like, oh, thank you so much. Well, whatever, Susan. Like, you just call your mom by her first name? What? Like, you know, so it's like when you see those types of things, it's like you find that middle ground of someone who's actually focusing on the mentorship aspect. I think that's something that's incredibly neglected in just how we raise people.
Yeah, it is definitely.
Yeah. And it works for adults too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my father taught me how to be a man, and my mom taught me how to have a relationship with a woman. I didn't even know it at the time. I didn't figure that out till I was in my 30s.
Yeah, but that's good that you had it and that you did have both there to teach you, two different traits.
Yeah. And so the conditioning, like Peter said, around 9, 10, I think it happens earlier, 6, 7.
Yeah.
That we have defining moments in our life where something happens, and then we make a decision as a child how we're going to show up in life. And my defining moment is I got left behind in a department store. Right. I was looking at GI Joes, and they were checking out, and I looked around. My family's not. I got an older brother, mom and dad. No one's around, and panic. So I'm running around the store looking for them. Can't find them. I run out to the park. They're all getting in the car. I'm like, are they going to leave me? You know, I'm 6. Like, did they not even notice I was gone? And right then and there, I made a choice. People will not ever forget me again.
I
will be noticed.
However that manifested.
At 6, I made that choice. I didn't realize I made that choice at 30, but that 6-year-old was running my 30-year-old life. I was still behaving like a 6-year-old.
Well, I guess in that light of trauma, and this, I guess, is definitely, I mean, it's a question for both, obviously, but in the light of overcoming and transforming our traumas into strengths, how does one accept the trauma or surrender to it enough to the point where they can actually heal from it?
I think the first step is acknowledging it, acknowledging that it happened, and acknowledging that it's not something that's a part of you. It's something that happened to you, but you are able to grow from it and heal from it. So you look at a traumatic experience, and look for ways for you to grow from it. If it's a way for you to grow from it, then find those ways and identify those ways. If not, then just accept it, because some things we can't grow from. Some things just in reality, it's gonna stick with us throughout our life. I've had traumatic experiences that happened throughout my life multiple times, and I just accepted them. I just had to accept it, like, okay, you know what, that happened, but it's not going to change the way that I look at the world. It's not going to change my response to other people just because of my traumatic experience, because I did find that some of those traumatic experiences were changing the way that I interacted with people. And I had to remove that away from it. I had to remove myself away from that experience and reinvent myself and feel like, okay, that's a part of me, but it's not me.
And that right there is a super important term. It's actually funny enough that this came up numerous times this week already. The accepting trauma, I find, is always a hard thing for people to stomach initially. When you say, it's like, you have to accept the pain, you have to accept this. And it's because, again, like, oh, you want me to accept getting abused? You want me to accept seeing someone that I love lost? Like all these types of, scenarios that arise. But to me, your answer is just the expression of love. of self-love, seeing it for the reality it is, knowing that it's not who you are right now in this current moment, but that sense of going past acceptance and to kind of surrender to it. Because I feel like that's one of the things when we have the trauma that we hold on to is people fight it so much. It becomes a point of opposition or like aggression, where it's just like, oh, well, could you do this? No, because I have this and this. And it's like, it's like we close things off. And that's the sense where it's like, no, the full expression of love is just its openness. It's to allow things to fully be, to fully see it so we can recognize it. And just that sense of, bringing it back to the action, like you were saying, like, going beyond what you think you know about yourself, and really just when you act on something, you'll see it. And it's that sense of the experiential knowledge then silencing all the doubt and the fear. Right. Yeah. And just knowing that. I like that a lot. Knowing that it's not you. Like how many people are identified and literally attached with their traumas as part of like who they are. Yeah. There's a lot of them.
Yes. First of all, Dorian, great answer. Accepting the trauma isn't always easy. It's just part of the process. Yeah. And right. And one thing I've learned is you don't have to like it. You just need to accept it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You can't deny the truth. The truth is the truth. Now you can argue the truth all you want. It doesn't change the truth.
Yeah. That's like trying to say, I'm going to go back in time and change what happened. Like, no, we can't reverse time. We cannot reverse it. So we can't reverse time or the happiness that happened during that time.
And then the second thing I wanted to add was, this is part of your curriculum, Dorian, is it becomes part of our story.
Yeah.
Just like Peter was saying, then everything that we do is based upon, but I'm this, I'm that, I'm broken, right? Yeah. And then it becomes this story of victimhood that we can't overcome. And we die as a martyr to our own story because we perpetuate our story because it gains us sympathy and attention, and we feed off of that. And so why change our story if it's getting the attention? Maybe I'm not improving, but but all I have to do is moan a little bit and everybody goes, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? And so it becomes actually a control issue.
Yeah, it's crazy you say that because I used to do that. I used to try and play victim. Oh, I grew up in a single parent house. I grew up in this type of environment, and I want people to feel sorry for me. But, I had to accept it. Like, you know what? People don't really care at the end of the day. Like, I don't care what you went through. I don't care. There's other people that have been through things like that or even worse, but they made things happen. So stop sitting there complaining and just knuckle up and do it. So I had to separate, like exactly what you said.
Yeah, a lot of things we have to do out of spite. And what I mean by that is not being spiteful. I mean, in spite of. Yeah. In spite of my adversity, in spite of my afflictions, in spite of my experiences, I'm on a path. I like how you put it, on path to being the best version of myself. Right. And so, of course, there's going to be all sorts of hurdles to get there. You're not immediate, this is the world we're in. This world is a classroom teaching us how to be our better selves. And
facts.
You're your own teacher.
Yep.
Huge point right there, though. We are our own teachers. Like, that's the stuff that always gets me is like, I think one of the first things I always try to tell people is like, you're your own student. You're your own teacher. You're your own subject of research. You're your own project. You know what I mean? Like, it literally is just all about you. It's like each individual is the main story, like is the main character to their story, and their storyline will never pick off or will never pick up if you never dedicate your full beingness to that main character.
Right.
Like, and that's the coolest thing is, like it comes back to, everything in this life is part of our story. But are you going to use it to make it the story?
Yeah. And it's crazy. I have so many different analogies that I use. I use an analogy for writing a story. I say we're our own authors. We're the authors of our story. So we're the main character who's there to choose which characters are going to stay the next chapter. Who's going to come in? Who's going to stay in the last chapter and not come with us? Is the plot going to change? So we are our own authors of our lives.
Imagine if we were taught that in school. like as kindergartners, where it's just like, all right, you're each your own character. How do you want your life to go?
I want to be a hero.
Exactly. Hey, go ahead and create it. How does that look for you? How does you being a hero, what superpowers are you going to have? Metaphorically, but what things are you going to do? How are you going to change the world? Or are you going to save people? What are you going to do? Who are you a superhero to? Oh, we won't go into it, but I can get into the stuff.
But the possibilities are infinite.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, is in order to get kids to think about this, and this is a little experiment that I did when I was working in a childcare facility, is, they used to do something called circle time, right? Very childish. Oh, we're going to sit in a circle. We're going to talk about some stuff, and we changed it. We're like, for like the 4th and 5th graders that I was working with, I was just like, all right, well, we're going to use 3 tables. We're going to put them in, like a U shape, just so like they can be all seen at once. More strategy to that. And then giving the kids a power of being like, all right, guys, what do you want to call this? And they're like, well, what are we doing? I was like, I'm just going to ask you guys questions. You're going to talk amongst your groups, listen to each other like you're listening to music, teaching them how to hear, listen to others, essentially. And then, then we're going to have representatives from each table share a point, and then we're just going to talk about it as a group. And they're like, all right, give us a minute. And like, they were all chatting in their groups, and they're like, let's call it U-time because it's for us. So why not just call it us? We're shaped into you. And I was like, I love it. Where are we going to go with this next? And I started giving these kids super deep philosophical questions, guys, just very childlike things. So when you said like what superhero are you going to be? I was just like, great question. Because then you just go, all right, what powers do you have? What are you going to fight for? What type of people are you going to save? Like, how do you want to make an impact? What's your legacy going to be? And these kids were already starting to tie in things like, well, I want to be a vet. So my superpowers, I want them to heal, I would be able to heal pets. And my legacy will be that I end animal violence like throughout the world because everyone loves me as a superhero. You know what I mean? Like some people are like, well, I'm protecting, the kids who are bullied because I was bullied, and you start to see these kids already in their 10, 11, already in their hearts, they know what the type of person they really want to be is. And that's the stuff that always blows my mind, because it's like, why do we lose that? When does that get I guess you would say squeezed out of us? Or when does that get just removed from our beingness? But these kids know already that they want to fight for justice, for truth, for inclusivity. They already have these deep soul missions ready to go. This is my purpose.
Yeah. I talk about that in the book. I talk about that a little bit, and I say we have these dream lives when we're kids, but then next thing you know, they start to tell you to be realistic. Be realistic. Stop dreaming. That's not possible. So they start to tell you these things. So it starts to strip you away of that childhood dream that you've always had.
That's a real
powerful one.
Yeah. I mean, that's a conundrum right there. Follow your dreams, but be realistic. Don't they contradict each other? I'm not sure.
Even the term dreams, even how we express it, even in the subtlety of it, even calling it a dream is just it's something that's make believe. Yep. It's just how do we even change the diction to be all right, talk about your happenings, your future happenings. What do you want to will to be? What are your highest aspirations?
Right.
Aspiration is a good word. Yeah.
I try to use that one instead of desires, because I feel like people get a little lusty-gusty with desires or instant gratification with desire. So it's aspiration, separate yourself, aspire to be great. Man, that's a fascinating one. When we tell kids to be realistic, wow. I'm trying to think about myself. That's happened numerous times. Definitely a lot more be realistic or scoffing, ugh, really? Versus anything. And it's just imagine if we lived in a world where kids were supported from the get-go with their aspirations like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to be an engineer. Okay. Let's go.
Let's do it. Yeah, for real. It's in a perfect world that would happen, but we're in today's world.
And we're changing it. I feel like it's these types of conversations. It's the people that are tapping into their own divinity, as I call it, because again, I see each being as a god and goddess of creation and manifestation. And until we realize that, we're literally just living the creations of someone else. So it's until we take our lives into our own hands like that, we never really fully recognize the magic that life is here to give us everything we want. In truth, it really is. It may not be how we need it at the time, but it will give us everything we really want in the end if we stick with it.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Give us everything we need.
Yeah, it provides us what we need to awaken deeper.
Yeah.
But I will say, the more you open up and awaken about yourself, the more, or I would say that the less interference that there is with what you want to manifest. So it's like the more genuine you are in your heart, the easier it is to kind of just will whatever you want into existence.
I like that better. I have been swapping out the word want with the word will.
Yeah.
Because wanting, like we were talking about in part one about visualization, you're a fan of the law of attraction, and having a motion that matches that attraction will actually attract it quicker, right?
Right.
Okay. And so this wanting, using the word want, you know, and there's a whole lot of talk about this, why the law of attraction doesn't work, because the want signifies a lack of something.
Right.
Right. And so basically I'm saying, I want this because, and then I'm feeling like, because I don't have it. And so there's this desperation with the want, and it only magnifies the desperation. So you say, I want this. So what? I want this. Okay. And then, I want. And that's all I meditate on. I want. What do I get? More wanting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's the want has an energetic connection to it. Now, if I use the word, I will get this, I will do this, it basically just changes the whole conversation from I don't have it to I'm going to get it.
Right.
The internal dialogue.
Yeah.
That's an important one.
Yeah. So want to me is kind of a two-edged sword.
I could see it. So there's one question that I didn't get a chance to cover. Here, there we go. So in terms of changing the narratives that we tell ourselves in order to create the story we really want for that highest self, how do we break those patterns of like the negative and destructive self-talk?
It comes from you learning who you are, who you aren't, and then not subscribing to the things that you've been subscribed to before about yourself. So that negative self-talk, all those self-limiting beliefs, you have to identify who they are and start to move away from them. Start to do the opposite of the things you've been telling yourself before. So as you start to do the opposite, then you start to believe new things about yourself. That goes with what we were saying before about you seeing yourself achieve different things. You seeing yourself in a different light is the same aspect of you achieving certain small goals and getting that belief within yourself. And that's the same thing with those negative self thoughts that you may have within.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the subtlety and the power of what you said, I have to highlight it because I don't think a lot of people would catch it. It's recognizing who you're not.
That was an important distinction.
That's the hugest split right there. That's a super deep, like ties every philosophy, religion, everything together.
Because for myself, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, it's all you.
Because for myself, I had to identify who I wasn't because I was told that I was so many negative things as a child and as a teen, and I held on to it, and I used them as my crutches. I was saying I played victim because I was told these things. I was told all of these things, what I was and all the things that I dealt with, even though some of them may have been true, even though some of them may have been obvious. But I had to say that I don't want to be this any longer. I'm not going to be this any longer. I'm going to be a different person. And then that changed the way that I thought about myself. It changed the words that I used towards myself. I was more, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't so mean to myself. Yeah. I wasn't, looking like, oh no, you know what? You don't have it. Why even try? No, you have to keep on doing it. You have to give it a shot because you're looking to become a new individual. So what new things do you need to take within? What new shifts do you need to make for yourself? What things are you holding on to that are hindering you? What things are being an anchor and holding you down exactly where you are right now? And you need to cut that anchor. but you're trying to cut an iron hanger with something that's gonna break. You have to find that strength, and the thing that's gonna cut that anchor is that belief within yourself, and then all that negative talk is gonna fade away.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just naturally tapping into really deep teachings of just the pureness of what we are as beings. Ultimately, you know, stripping away what we're not naturally reveals what we are. And the most important, at least for me experientially, the most important applications of those kind of inquiries of like, well, what am I not, you know, were when I directly challenged those negative thoughts and was just like, whoa. It's telling me, like, my mind's saying, no one wants to hear this. This is worthless. All right, let me say this in the meeting. Hey, I'm thinking this and this and this. Oh my gosh, that's great. We should implement that. Like, I started seeing like a little like a week experiment turned into 2 weeks. And within those 2 weeks, my life changed. I always try to highlight this to people and like different students, because like in the sense of just that mental aspect of what you're talking about is like directly questioning it and doing the opposite. That is one of the simplest ways to completely change your life. A simple pivot, you know, because again, for me, it was all the situations where my mind was like, no, don't speak your truth. Don't let it be known. Don't stir the pot and rile people up. But like, or, you know, or maybe it was like some insecurity where it's just like, oh no, don't smile at them. Like they're not looking at you like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like all these weird things. And when I started to literally just say like, I'm going to do the opposite of the loudest thought like that. If you're mean and nasty, I'm doing the opposite of it. So sure. I started to experiment and play with it. And it really did turn into like, I got a raise / promotion. They implemented the suggestion that I was going to silence myself on, resolve some stuff with coworkers, parents, work. You know what I mean? Like it was crazy just to see the subtleties of how powerful things like that can be, where it's just like, what we discern thoughts all the time. I use the example of like the ugly baby, where it's just like, you know, your friend brings your like their baby up in a stroller. Baby's just hideous. You know, but they're like, how's my baby look? Your first thought's like, dang, that's an ugly baby. You're not going to be like, oh my gosh, they're hideous. You're gonna be like, oh my God, they're so cute. Look at those cheeks. I'm so happy for you. Like, depending on your friendship, you may be pretty cold-blooded, but like, but it's one of those things where we have this ability to discern ridiculous thoughts all the time. But it's those ones that are pulled to the heartstrings, that are attached to like the things we're sensitive or insecure about. Those are the ones that dominate our headspace. But why don't we treat them any differently than the ones we discern so quickly? Right. You know, so that's the stuff where I'm like, yes, dude, like, yeah, like this is why I love having these conversations, because like that type of statement interaction that can change someone's life. Just simply doing the opposite of it. Yeah,
that's it. But it's hard to do the opposite because it seems it's so much tension there. So it's easier to go with the norm.
Yeah. That right there, though, the path of, we hear it all the time, right? The path of least resistance. When it comes to life, I think that's a pattern I picked up on, is the path of least resistance by default isn't the right way, because our path of least resistance, the least resistance is based on like the ego, the pain, the conditionings. Right. And it takes that kind of going uphill before we finally get to the peak. And then it really is path of least resistance. Just being yourself is the easiest thing that there is. Right. But how much effort and work it actually takes to censor ourselves, to not be ourselves, it's tiring. I think that's ultimately, like, bringing it full circle. Ultimately, that might be where a lot of the burnout comes from. Yeah. Because people are just not themselves ever.
Yeah. And you see it a lot of times where you get these creators or these public figures that have these breakdowns, because they have on a mask the whole time. They have on a mask and they try to confine themselves to what the world portrayed them to be, or what the world visualizes them. And they want to show up as that person at all times. And it's not really them. It's like getting home and you just label like, I'll take this mask off. I'm able to relax now. And that's what happens.
I love it. I love it. We'll take that a step further too. Like, let's be real. Being a person can be so challenging that every night when we go to sleep, it's just like the most comfortable thing to do. It's just, I just want to lay on my bed. I just want to lay my head down and just get to rest. But technically speaking, what is sleep and rest? It's us literally forgetting of even this personal identity. Of just being willing to let it go. Just being like, I'm done with the character.
Right.
So what stops us from being done with the character every day?
Right.
Like, yo, yeah,
That's
you
the
can go up for
fine line.
hours.
Head scratcher, man.
I could go up on hours for this one, yo. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's
That's
great.
going to keep me awake at night now.
Why do I fall asleep? Like, trust me, it's a question that I've asked, but it's gotten me to the point where it's like, oh, okay. It's actually helped in the steps of like where I'm at with certain meditation and qigong practices. Is like that is the purest form of relaxation, is forgetting of even your beingness.
Yeah.
Just letting go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the magic sauce. That's like, yeah, but that's where we're all on. I think everyone's on this path of really recognizing that like we've been playing this character that we were given for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And when are you actually going to stop playing that character and write your own? So I love it. I'm bringing it back to the story aspect, because it's like, in truth, that's what really happens, right? Like we're dancing this dance thinking that we're someone that we're not, until we realize like, oh shit, none of that resonates with me anymore.
Right.
It was never really me. It was never really me. Like, then who am I?
Yeah, exactly. And you go on that self-discovery and go on all that, you know how it goes. So
Yeah.
you know,
Identity crisis and
mm-hmm.
Yeah, just being like a lost. Like, what do I do? Where do I go?
Right, exactly.
Oh, man.
I've been there, and I gotta say that without some form of grounding, some form of it's easy to get lost, and it's when I say lost in the sauce and lost in our purpose, but having to come out recentered, I when I came out the other side, I didn't know if this was a midlife crisis or not, because it happened in my early 40s, and I thought, this is not my midlife, is it? And I plan to live a lot longer, but anyway. But what I came out of is that I realized I no longer wanted to be who I was. I was very successful. I was making lots of money, but I went, this is not how I want people to remember me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, well, how do I want them to remember? And then I had to start from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the good thing, is that because Dorian also used this, I got to reinvent myself, who I'm going to be, how I'm going to show up. And what I found out is I've probably done it a dozen times, and it gets easier as I go, because I get better at eliminating the bullshit. Like I know what I don't want to be now. I have a clearer idea of what's left.
Yeah. The hard part is hearing the outside noise. When everyone else tells you, you probably around your peers, your coworkers, people that you're interacting with, and they calling you crazy.
How you're supposed to be. You're supposed to.
Yeah.
I hate the supposed tos.
Yeah. That's the hard part about is blocking that outside noise outside of your mind. Like, you know what? Okay, I understand what they're saying, because when I left my job, they were, people's like, you sure you want to leave? Like, you crazy. Like, you got a guaranteed paycheck. You got, you get paid good. Like, you at the top. Like, I was one of the top people in my department. And it was like, you know what? This is not for me. It's not about the money. It's not anything. I'm not happy, stressed out, frustrated, take away time from myself. I need to do what my heart is calling me to do, what I was born to do. So,
yeah, I got a question for you on this. And I think this is a very pertinent question.
Mm-hmm.
Is that transitioning from that corporate into entrepreneurship?
Mm-hmm.
I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I've only worked for a corporation once or twice. But when I say I'm an entrepreneur, I've been a startup. I've done businesses. Most of the time I'm running the business. Maybe I have an investor. They actually own the business. They're funding me or something to that effect, right? But I was in the real estate business, killing it. And it just got to a point, you can call it burnout, you can call it whatever it was, but it just became like the harder I worked, the less satisfying it got. And I got, why am I wasting all my time doing something I'm not enjoying?
Right.
I don't even want to get out of bed in the morning.
Right.
And so I'd have to say it happened around it happened around a pivotal point in my life where I just kind of went, I know I've always wanted to be a writer. And I've been writing poetry and short stories since I was 15. And I've kept a collection of them, knowing someday I was going to publish them. But I always just kept it on the back shelf. And I just kind of, well, what's stopping me from publishing them now?
Right. Yeah. And you were asking my transition personally?
Yeah, I want to know.
Entrepreneurship? It was a hard transition. I think because I left last May. I left May of 2020. Well, I don't even know. But yeah, I left May 2020 in the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah. Look, the big transition for a lot of people, right?
Yeah. So I decided, it was when everybody was like, you know what, we shutting everything down. All businesses are closed. And I took that time to leave. But to get to your question, for me, it took me over a year to really understand what it means to be an entrepreneur. I was doing different things here and there, just learning, going through the motions. But it took me a while. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, first year I killed it. No, hell no. No, I was struggling to find myself, struggling to really identify myself as an entrepreneur and identify my business, because I was in a part where I was trying to brand myself personally, but also trying to brand a business. But I finally realized that I had to brand myself first. I had to make myself the brand. I had to get people connected with me, because they don't want to connect with the logo. They don't care about, okay, you putting out a quote and okay, that's good. But people care about the story. People want to connect with you. So that was my biggest part of my transition, was not being scared to tell my story, not being scared to share my experiences, and understanding that that's what people really connect with. So it was me getting comfortable with that, understanding that, okay, my story is someone else's story as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing
100%.
that.
No problem.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to that sense of the importance of coming back to your authenticity. It's like the only times that I feel like life really rewards us is when we're being ourselves. And that's like the courage to be you, to be what life in the universe, source, creator, whatever people think or believe, like whatever you were made, that's what you are. There's not going to be another Dorian, not another Rusty or Peter. You know what I mean? And that's ultimately what I see is like, and maybe you relate with this in the sense of, you're in this realm of kind of human services, right? Here to help people. All of us are. And in that same light, the only way that we can truly help and gift this world, the awesomeness that we can all experience, is to bring our unique self to the forefront. But that's like, honestly, I feel like that's the saddest thing about the current state of affairs is, you mentioned it subtly earlier, where it's like a small group of people are at this level of recognition. It's like, yeah, unfortunately so, but life doesn't even really start to get fun until you figure out really who you're not.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
And then once you do, you figure out what took me so long to figure that out.
Right. And then it takes you on a different path than what you've been on before.
Of being you for the first time, like really loving yourself. And I think that's the stuff that is always the beauty of it, because the more you put yourself out there, the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about life, the more you get received and graced with just people and opportunities and networks and connections. And yeah, man, it's a beautiful dance. And I just got to say, thanks for tapping in with us. It's been dope.
Oh, no. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I got to say that, what you said earlier, again, probably part one, about looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you, and meaning it. After I made that switch, I was able to do that. And so, and it gets to the point where I look at myself and I just love who I am today. I love I want to hang out with me all day long.
Yeah. Like I enjoy my own company. Like you crack me up. Like, because what happens when you were, in that transition, you didn't feel like yourself because you never took time to really look at yourself. Yeah. You took time when you're at a job, you're sitting there, you sometimes take away the stress of the job with you. You take away all of the things that happened throughout that day. You start to replay conversations you had with other people instead of the conversations you had with yourself, because you may not have conversations with yourself. People may think it's crazy, like they're crazy, they're talking to themselves. No, I encourage you to talk to your damn self. Like, how can you talk to someone else when you can't connect with you? When you don't know who you are, when you don't know your real thoughts? Like, how do you expect to serve someone when you can't even serve yourself?
100%. 100%. And there's nothing more simpler than that. Ultimately, if you really can't communicate, comes back to that like statement earlier in part one, where it's like, if you can't communicate with yourself and navigate your internal space, how do you ever expect to be able to navigate the external world in life successfully?
Yeah.
Or with happiness. You don't even, whatever success, doesn't even matter, but with happiness, just being really authentically joy filled and joyous, like, not gonna happen, not gonna happen.
And to touch on that happiness, we go and we have so many unsuccessful relationships, marriages of people who aren't happy because they're not happy with themselves. We go into a lot of things and we pour our all into others and we forget to pour into ourselves as well. I think I was talking to someone I was working with. They were just trying to find their way. And I asked her, like, hey, when's the last time you just had time for you? Instead of, outside of being a wife, being a mother, because you need to reconnect with you. How can you make someone else happy when you're not happy yourself? Go and, separate, take that time for you. Yeah. And that's what I'm encouraging people to do. You ask me someone for anyone to do. If you listen to this, take time for yourself. Take time to reconnect with who you are. Identify yourself. Find the things that make you happy, bring you joy. No matter how selfish it may seem, it's not selfish because you need to be whole in order for you to serve others.
Man, that's a discourse right there.
Facts.
And I'm writing down bullet points because I'm going to put bullet points right there. That's going to go off into a graphic infographic.
Well, it really is important though. And it's the first step that people really overlook is they try to fill themselves up with all these external loves. And it's just like, everyone has their own love language, but do you even know what yours is yet? I have actually experienced a lot of people who don't even know like what their love language is. And it's just like, then how do you receive love in a relationship? How do you give love to yourself? And that's the most neglected being in terms of our lack of love in this world. And it's ourselves. How much would change if we just simply like everyone loved themselves?
Yeah, exactly. You got to love who you are, and then you can love everybody else. One of my favorite little things I like to say, even I say this to my daughter, I say, she hates when I do it. I don't know if you've seen Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell. ELE, everybody love everybody. Yeah. But you got to love yourself first.
Facts. Facts. And you can't love anyone if you really don't love yourself. The capacity is limited to receive and give. And
that's a powerful concept, though, when you think about it, because most of the people that are hurting others are people who are hurt and don't love themselves. So if everybody did love themselves, the amount of other people getting hurt from other people would just diminish.
Well, I know vice versa too. My personal experience with it is when you're in love with someone who doesn't fully love themselves and you're just constantly pouring in love to fill a void that is just never going to be filled by you because your love can never fill it. It doesn't matter what you say or do, they have to take that reign in their own experience and be like, okay, well, where am I not loving myself? Speaking my truth, where, and if they don't do it, then it's like, that's when people also have to love themselves enough to leave the situation.
Yeah.
And to recognize that they do deserve better and do deserve more. That's been one of the ones for me, this, we talk about self-love. It's like, I always just want to let people know, it's like, like tapped in spiritually, experience and know a little and a lot at the same time, I feel. But most importantly, like my journey for like fully self-love, like didn't really start until like 8 months ago when I like left my ex and was just like, I'm done. Like this isn't working, and it was like a year in the process before that. But it was really that point where I was just like, I had to ask myself that, like, am I loving myself fully? Am I experiencing the capacity of my love fully? And I was just like, I'm not, because I'm looking at all the areas of where my partner was capped, where like she couldn't give love, she couldn't receive love. And I was just like, do I even know what my potential is in love yet? It's like, fuck no. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, so it was just like with a person for like 11 years, you're just like, okay, well, who am I? Like, what is the love that I want? What is the love that I need? Like, have I even given myself that yet? And then like ending that, spending that time in like the in-between, experimenting and finding different people and just like, wow, these are the things I'm looking for. That's the stuff I'm not looking for. This is what oh shit, this is how effortless it's supposed to be? Like,
Right.
like it blows your mind when you stop putting these limitations of yourself of what we think we deserve and expect. Because I know a lot of people, like, especially a lot of like the meditation students I work with, they're like domestic violence survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing that I had the exact same mental patterns as they did really broke my heart. Where I was just like, oh wow, it's like I was so undeserving of myself and not like loving towards myself that I thought I should have to put up with this. That I thought there was nothing else, that this is the only thing out there. It was just like, wow, like we live in a world that lacks so much love, it's nauseating.
Right.
Like, and we can't come to awaken that world unless everyone loves themselves. It's kind of like, damn.
Yeah. And learning how to love is big. Learning how to love and receive love.
Receiving love. That's a huge one. Oh man, we can go off on hours with this, but I will say with that, I just want to say, Dorian, thank you again so much for coming on Creatives Chat. It's been a blessing and it's been so much of a pleasure. I mean, we've a lot of nuggets of wisdom throughout this episode. Yeah. Anything else you want to drop on the users and the listeners?
No, I feel like I gave them a lot. Like I said before, if you got any information you want to ask me or questions, you're struggling with your personal growth, goal achievement, just finding your purpose, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Check out the links down below, which they'll have there for you. And, let's go out there and be great.
Woo. I got to say, Dorian, I'm really impressed. I mean, it is refreshing to be able to have a conversation with another self-master. And I can tell, I mean, like there's not one, I challenge any of our viewers to go back and review part 1 and part 2 and see at any point did Dorian go, Not once did he go, You are so, I mean, to me, that like, your stuff so well.
Yeah.
That it's not like, I mean, I could tell pretenders, people that are just regurgitating other people's material, right? Your stuff. And so I just want to thank you for being authentic with us and sharing your stuff with us.
Yeah. Experiential knowledge always hits different.
Yeah. I want to say thank you guys for having me, and thanks for the compliment as well. This is what I do. It's my passion. It's my purpose. And I'm dedicated to it. I'm dedicated to helping the world change and, in the way of growing themselves. And I say, I like to make personal development easy for the everyday person. I don't like to use all the, so-and-so said this. Like, no, this is the reality. This is what it is. This is how you can apply it and start to make yourself better right this moment. I give practical steps, and that's what I dedicate myself to.
And with that, roll the outro.
Okay.
Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible. Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
Another creative art production by Retro Earth Studio.
That concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching our show. Click the bell button to get notified of future episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Okay, yeah, I'm down with that. I'm cool with it.
Cool. It's been real, man. Thank you so much for tapping in with us.
All right, I appreciate you. You guys have a nice one.